Anders Blume, a lot of people know who you are, so we're not going to really cover that ground because, yeah, most people know who you are. But what are you doing in Sweden right now?
Sweden right now I'm covering the Björn Borg, the FPSlovers.com challenge. So that's why I'm here. Was here last week as well, covering the Pantamera tournament. So I've been on here a bit off and on. And I like the introduction, it makes me sound even more famous. That's good.
All right, so we're going to do this. It's kind of an in-depth interview, but it's not that deep. You know, we're just going to touch the depth a little bit. And we're going to go back. When you started this whole casting, you started off, or you made a name for yourself in NiP. In NiP Gaming, you were the official caster. And now, in hindsight, I just want to know, how big of a boost do you think that was to your career, being a part of NiP instead of being independent? Yeah,
being on podcast as it was beforehand. I'm still scared that the VODs might be out there somewhere of what we did early on, but I guess that's like part of the show. Obviously, being a part of NiP that's like a big boost, right? NiP is a big name, and it was back then as well. So that definitely helped a lot. So that's on the one side. Definitely having the name behind you makes a big difference, and I'm glad to see that they're still pushing it on. I think Kayanat and Chewy are like trying to push on the NiPtv idea a little bit more. So that's good news. But on the other hand, I did do pretty much all the work on my own, in a sense that sort of the NiP brand was more or less just a name for it, and then a lot of the work came down to me, which wasn't because I think NiP didn't want to help more, but I really liked it that way. I really enjoyed sort of, you know, deciding what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. So it kind of worked out for everyone in that sense, I think, and I got to learn a lot from doing those things on my own. Whereas I think if they had wanted to take more charge, and if they'd actually done it, I would have, I would have learned less, because they would have been the ones running the show, essentially. So, yeah.
All right. And back then, you could say that the scene was relatively small compared to what it is today. Thinking back, is there anything in particular you maybe miss that has faded with the uprising of CSGO?
Well, the way it worked for us back then was basically that we would sit down, or I would sit down at the end of the day, around 4 or 5, and I'd look at what games were coming up in Star Series and ESCA or any other content really. ESL we had like an active functioning partnership with, which we sort of still do, and we would just pick matches as we chose. We could just pick whatever games we wanted to. All the leagues were open. Anyone could pick up the GoTV IP and go and start OBS or XSplit and run with it. There was a certain freedom involved to that. We were talking about how do we get sponsorships, like how do we get paid more than just ad revenue for what we're doing. And then came the time when that picture changed a lot, and all the leagues decided, well, we're going to have to in-house all our content, which means we want it done on our own channels, in our own name, no more open GoTVs. And that's what they should do. That's not because they're evil and because they're like capitalist or anything else like that. It's the right way to go about things, and everyone started doing that, and everyone is still slowly going that direction, which meant our world changed a lot, because now we couldn't rely on having free content, as it were. We'd have to either create our own or come up with deals for casting, continue to cast somehow in other ways, which is still something that we're working on. It's like a learning process. We saw it coming before it happened, which I think is good, because otherwise it could have been a bit of a shock. So yeah, I think that's the one major difference, is that now you have to engage more actively to try and either create your own content, or you have to make partnerships with people who have the content.
Would you say it's harder to become a caster today than it was when you started?
Yeah, way harder. Actually, regrettably so. I get emails from people every once in a while, or on Reddit, asking, how can I start to cast a Counter-Strike match? And the answer almost has to be, we can't. Not live anyway. Then you'd have to go and pick up demos and probably put them on YouTube and prove to people that you're good. And then, especially I think if you're not casting in English, there's a bigger chance actually, because maybe you're covering a language that nobody else is. So, if you're the first person to say, well, I want to cast in Finnish, then probably some tournament will say, well, we don't have a Finnish stream, let's just go for it. But if there's already a main official English stream, chances are they won't allow you, and that's actually a real shame. That's actually bad, But I don't know what the answer to it is, because at the same time, you can't, as a tournament, just allow everyone to go in and essentially monetize your content. That's what you end up doing, right? Other people are essentially making money off of the work that you have put in, as bad as that sounds. So I don't know what the answer is, but that is one big downside, is that it's really hard for new people to get in, which is a shame.
All right, and talking about the growth of CSGO, you were a big part of the upswing. What would you say on a day-to-day basis is the biggest difference for you now compared to then? So
the other side of that, I guess I kind of hinted at it, but the other side of not being able to just cast any old thing is that now we do have a lot of business meetings with everyone that we can sort of get into contact with, and that takes up a lot of time, a lot more than I thought. I would say we switched from having 80% of our time casting and maybe 20% worrying about structure and business and the future and stuff like that, and now it's maybe like 60-70% business related and structure related things, and then there's casting on the side and a lot of traveling as well. But it's been a really big change in that sense, but not an unwelcome one. Actually, I've discovered that like that whole side of it is also really interesting and really fun, but it's very time consuming. And since we're essentially only 2 people running the show at RoomOnFire, it is pretty big.
Yeah, you say 2 people. Also, Semmler is obviously a part of RoomOnFire, and he was also a part of I'd say the later part of NiPtv, and then you somewhat grew out of NIP, started your own thing. What made you make the decision to leave NIP, and were you ever afraid of creating an own channel?
No, I don't think I was afraid of creating my own channel in that sense. Leaving NIP was more a decision that was based on the idea that I wanted like total control over what I was doing, meaning I wanted to be able to take the brand in any direction that I wanted to. And I'm not even sure. I mean, yeah, I think NIP were open to the idea that we could like continue to discuss things, but I felt like it's really, really hard to explain. I'm actually trying to talk to people about this afterwards and like ask around in the industry. And there seems to be a really, really clear difference between the people who function really well working under other people as employees and people who function very badly doing that. And for some reason I woke up one day and I felt I have to own what I'm making. I have to be able to do that. And I guess that feeling could change for me one day, but from that moment on, I realized I have to be able to be in full control of what I'm doing. So that I felt like I had no choice at that point. I wanted to try and experience that, and I don't regret it either. I think starting the channel wasn't that scary because I don't know. I think we've always enjoyed like a really incredible amount of community support. So it's been so. In some ways, we did rely a bit on saying, well, hopefully people will follow us and not just follow the NIP brand, essentially. And as it were, I still run into like a bunch of people at events who are like really diehard NIP fans who say like, oh, we remember the good old days when you were on NiPtv and we enjoyed that, and like there doesn't seem to be any like hard feelings from anyone. And luckily, I'm still really good friends with the NIP guys as well. So I'm glad that it worked out really well for everyone. In fact.
Speaking of that, time flies. So, do you feel at all nostalgic about the NiPtv time, or does it feel like yesterday for you? Not nostalgic really. I think it does feel a little bit like yesterday. Like I said, it was perhaps like a slightly easier time in the sense there was like less things to worry about. It was more like day to day. No one looked like months or years into the future to try and figure out what would be going on. So it was like, it was like a simpler time, but also one with, I think, less of a future in it. So, like that's hard to explain really, but I think that's the most accurate I can be. Going back to the growth of CSGO, one of the biggest reasons for the growth of CSGO is obviously the majors. Mm-hmm. You casted a little bit on the first one. You had the secondary stream with Semmler, and you also casted the later one, which was DreamHack 2014, and the first one was DreamHack 2013. Yeah. do you feel the development of the tournament when you compare them? Like, did you feel at 2014 like, wow, we've come a long way since 13?
There's an obvious difference in the viewer numbers. I guess that's the most easy way to sample growth. I would say the competition is very different from what it was. There's so many more teams that could potentially win, which makes it much more exciting. And there's a lot more structure and a lot more organization, and it's taken a lot more seriously as well, I think. It was such a big surprise that DreamHack went to the first one round in 2013 was such a big success, that it went so well. And in every consecutive major up until the last one has just been like steadily getting better and better, and been more and more all-consuming. Like, it seems like everyone, like far beyond the borders of Counter-Strike, people are very interested in the rest of esports about how well it's doing. So yeah, I'd say there's definitely progress, but there's still some things missing, I would say.
Yeah, speaking of which, like, obviously the tournament's format or the organizing can't be completely perfect. Is there anything you're still missing from the majors that we might be able to see at ESL 1 Katowice or in the future? What's the thing you maybe miss from the majors?
So I don't know if this is. I can't speak to Katowice just yet because I'm obviously not involved in the planning of that. So and this goes into like the territory of where you have to like understand like a lot more about how events are run in general. But if we just disregard that, I would say that, and to echo Freiburg a little bit, we do actually need best of 3 group stages in Counter-Strike, because it makes it more interesting, especially for major tournaments. I think there's something to be said that other tournaments can sort of decide what they want, because they are sometimes on the more strict time schedules, and sadly the majors kind of are too, but that's what I said. We have to sort of ignore that and just say if we focus on what would be the perfect model, then yes, we'd have like a best of 3 group stage, and then we'd have like a double elimination bracket and everything else. It'd be really like a really big tournament, but then you need so many more days, right? You need another 2 days to cover everything basically, and that doesn't function so well with the idea that the majors are held. Well, obviously DreamHack is a set amount of days, and they can't just easily put on 2 more days and rent the venue for 2 more days just to host the Counter-Strike tournament. And then the same is true for Gamescom when they was down in Cologne. You know, that's also a venue that's a different sort of a different show that's going on for a set amount of days. You can't just add 2 more days to it. And that's a big problem, sadly, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I did play around with the idea for a while that maybe you could, like in Stockholm, for instance, if you went to Inferno Online and you did part of the group stage at locally in Stockholm, and then you took all the teams that made it out into the playoffs, and then you played the playoffs at DreamHack, and you had all the you could cover all the games, and they could be best of 5 semifinals and grand finals. You could really like make it big. But it's logistically a really hard problem to solve. But it would be great if we could have that much. I'm still wondering if it's worth it for us to have different seasons where we have certain maps in. We can have like a core pool of 5 maps, which are the 5 well-knowns that everyone knows. But then you could rotate it out so that some seasons you have Train, some seasons you have Season, and Cobblestone, and you keep on maybe new maps that come in. You rotate, switch it out a little bit. To add some variety and to just to make it fun and interesting. That would actually not be a bad idea. I think I'd be for that. I think a 7 map pool is the most reasonable one. I did toy around with the idea for a while if 9 maps would be good, but I actually think it's too much now. So 7 I think is a good number. I'm trying to think what more could we add to majors. I have a couple of ideas myself. That I've always wondered if I should say out loud or if I should like try and sell to some organization, but I'm not the best salesman in the world, so I would really like it if we had, and this is just like a personal crazy idea, but just to add to the excitement and to add to the nonsense a little bit too, if we could have a big button in the center of the stage, and whatever team wins once we get to, you know, the major tournaments, whatever team wins, they can go and click that button, and then the lights just go out across the enemy team. Like, they actually shut them out, so that it's like really visibly there. It's like a show stage effect. It has nothing to do with the tournament at all. I just want to see like the drama of, you know, of a Fnatic, you know, sending Nip home with a click of a button and all that stuff. So yeah, that's like a personal idea I've had.
It's actually kind of funny. I'm just imagining Taz clicking that button.
Yeah. Taz or nothing. Jordan. Can you imagine Jordan being the guy to jump up on stage and send an enemy team home?
It's kind of trolly, isn't it?
It is. I mean, yeah, it's all show. It's all just, you know, show and drama, and it'd be fun, I think.
All right. Yeah. So we keep going with this whole growth of CS:GO, the uprising of CS:GO, and one other major part in this has been the skins, and the probably the most discussed part of the skin thing is betting. We've seen CS:GO Lounge have a monopoly on the whole thing, and although it is a great asset for it contributes a lot to the game, there's also some problems going around with it. And just to take an example, we have the iBuyPower incident and the Epsilon incident with match fixing, and these people have somewhat ended their careers with this. And I just want to pick your brain when it comes to Valve's decision, their sentencing on the Epsilon and iBuyPower players, and maybe your view on match fixing in general, if you have anything interesting to say about that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, match fixing is a really detrimental thing to any competitive sport, obviously. It actually, I mean, it sows so much distrust. And I think that's also one of the reasons why Valve took a really hard stance on it in banning people. As far as I can tell, the bans are like indefinite, meaning they could actually be, they don't have to be like permanent. They could be changed, like they could be less. And I guess maybe we'll see how that unfolds. I feel like the last thing hasn't been said on that topic, but I'm not 100% sure. And I actually haven't asked Valve about it either. I haven't communicated with them about their decision making or anything like that. I hope I can catch them about it at some point, but I feel like it's not necessarily my place either. Like, whenever I talk to Valve, I talk about GoTV and spectating tools and stuff like that, mainly, and sometimes some game balance. But this whole thing is obviously a little bit out of control, and part of the problem, sadly, is actually that on a sort of collective level, we all failed to realize that this could have happened. Sure, CS:GO Lounge probably has like some of the blame. You know, maybe they could have been more progressive in realizing this could have been going on, but I didn't think about it either. I don't know if anyone else in the community realized that this could have been like a huge problem. Valve didn't think about it. None of the organizations did. No one put into their contracts that if you throw games, if you do match fixing stuff, at least not as far as I know, you'll be penalized. There's like some sort of fine you'll have to pay, right? So we can point fingers a lot and say, well, these guys are to blame, but I think collectively, and for me, the match fixing and the cheating as well, to name another scandal, is signs of growing pains. I mean, that it means the game is growing so fast now, so many people coming into it, that it's really hard to predict what the next big issue is going to be and how we deal with it. And the problem is, if you don't have rules before an issue happens, it's really hard to deal out like reasonable punishment afterwards, because you end up in a situation where half the community is going to say, well, you know, they didn't know that they shouldn't have done it. Well, obviously they knew they shouldn't have done match fixing. I don't think, you know, anyone could argue that. But maybe they didn't know what the punishment was. Maybe they didn't know how bad it would be, and so on and so forth. And it's sort of made worse by the fact that it seems like people within the match fixing circles have like different levels of responsibility, like Swag maybe being the most obvious case, right? Really young player, probably somewhat coerced into doing it, didn't receive much of a payoff, and it does seem sad, really sad, if his career is going to be over because of it. I've met Swag like a number of times, and he's a really cool guy as well, so I don't know. I feel sad more than anything else. And I think generally speaking, and this goes for the cheating as well, banning people forever is, I'm not sure that the right idea. And probably a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but I think, you know, Cali and SMN and like these other people who were banned for cheating, I'm trying to, like, I don't know that much about real sports because I don't watch it a lot, but I feel like in real sports, if you get caught doping or doing drugs or something like that, yeah, you're going to be, quarantined for a while. You're not going to be able to participate in the tournaments, but they let you back in eventually. So maybe we need to have like a collective discussion about what kind of rules we could put into play. But it's a really hard topic, without a doubt. And it goes into a different territory, which is that we have no governing body in Counter-Strike. There is no one to set the rules and regulate the whole sport. And I don't think Valve really wants to be that. I think Valve very specifically wants the community to grow on its own. And they've actually done a really good job with that, as evidenced by the fact that now there are tournaments bigger than, or at least with collectively bigger prize pools than major tournaments, and it's really going to continue to grow. So I think it's the right move, but it shows one of the downsides of not having a governing body, which means you can't, make rules across all tournaments, right? It just happens that a lot of tournaments happen to, follow what Valve do and say, all right, we'll ban these people. But that's actually essentially the tournaments then putting it on Valve and saying, well, you guys then do become the governing body, even though you kind of maybe don't want to be. It's a very weird problem.
We've talked to players about this whole betting, to go back on topic, the whole betting thing, and we talked to players some time ago when the DDoSing was at its worst, and some obviously didn't like it, getting everything from DDoS to like death threats, but also some people say it's a part of sports betting, and we should just adapt to it and learn to live with it, or how to handle it. And I just want to know, what is your take on betting in general and in esports?
Well, as someone I did a lot of betting myself. I've now sort of found out that I can't do that because I'm on the wrong side of the fence, as it were, when it comes to that stuff. So that's a shame. But overall, I think betting is actually, it's helped. I don't think you can divorce the growth of Counter-Strike from the betting aspect of it. It's just become like such a huge force in getting people involved and interested, and keeping them involved and interested. And you can argue all day long that, in your opinion, they're involved for the wrong reason, like they should care about the game and not the skins. I think that's like, I mean, I would say, yeah, if I could make up people's minds and say, well, then I say, yeah, you should care more about the games than you should the skins. But for so many people, it's one of the reasons why they tune in and watch the matches. And I'm betting that over a long period of time, actually people will care less and less about the skins and more about the quality of matches, because it's going to be better and better and better. But it is a good tool to keep people involved and interested, and you can't really, I don't see a way out of that argument. So it has lots of, I would say, really positive side effects, but it's just that when we don't have rules to regulate when it goes wrong, then we're in a tough position. And again, I think growing pains is like the big overarching headline here. It's growing so fast that we can't really keep up with it from an organizational point of view, really.
All right, and that ends all the questions, the deeper questions. But I still want to end this on a more positive note, because we've talked about a lot of negative stuff here. So I just want to ask some quick questions, like name top 3 teams in the world right now.
Top 3 teams in the world.
In the right order.
In the right order as well. I would still say Fnatic and Envy, or the former LDLC team. And third in place, that's the really hard one. Oh man, that is not an easy one.
Just go for TSM.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to say TSM, especially because I'm Danish. It's the obvious choice, but yeah, I'm gonna have to say TSM for the moment.
Right, and top 3 players do you have, or at least the best player in the world right now?
Best player in the world right now? I would say from this year, from what we've seen this year, and we're only just getting started, I guess, but I think Happy right now is coming close to that. He's playing at a really insane level at the moment. But that's really hard, yeah. I'm going to go with Happy. Okay,
most underrated team?
Most underrated team? Weirdly, because I don't know why they even are. I mean, I guess that's why it's called underrated, but I actually think the LGB lineup is like terrifically underrated. Every time I see them pop up anywhere, people just seem to, like, going off the comments and the threads on Reddit and HLTV, it feels like people don't expect too much from them at all. So yeah, I don't know why that's become a thing. I wish I could choose someone that's like lower down the ladder, because in my mind LGB is like right on the edge of being like a really strong team. So so it feels like it doesn't feel quite right calling them underrated, because in my mind they're a really good team. But it looks like from a public point of view that people don't really think that highly of them.
All right, and so if you took my seat and you got to choose anyone and any player to sit in your seat, and you could do an interview with him or her, who would it be?
Interview player. I'm trying to think. That's a tough question, actually. Right now I would love to do an interview with Angel, because first of all, he's a really funny guy. So like always good having him interviewed in general, I'd say. And I really want to know more about the CIS scene in in Russia and Ukraine and that whole area, because I really want to know where that is going right now, because there seems to be so much confusion, right? Na'Vi lineup seems to be sort of still sticking together and functioning, but then there's Flipside and there's obviously Hellraisers as like the other two big teams, and I don't know. I'm generally more confused about the CIS scene now that I've been for a very long time, and I need some help trying to figure it out. So yeah, I think Angel would be my bet at the moment. I'd really like to know where this whole project is going, because they have like an insane amount of talent, and they seem to not be able to put it together in the right order, or something else is missing. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah.
All right. So dream spot, dream location for major number 6.
Las Vegas. Yeah.
Betting?
Oh yeah, I can see the potential here for like some really serious drama, but yeah, I like Vegas. Seems like the place where we should take Counter-Strike to. And plus, I don't think we'd run into any kind of issues with like the whole guns and game violence, stuff. I think that's going to be cool in Vegas. So yeah, that's my thing.
All right, that's the last quick question. That's all I could come up with. Lastly, I want to ask you what's up next for you. What's up in the future with RoomOnFire and Anders?
Well, like I said, we've been spending so much time on working with different partnerships, and maybe people have noticed lately that we've been covering the ESL Pro League tournament, and that sort of ended. Now that's going to be a LAN final, so we're going to figure out exactly where that's heading. ESL a little bit occupied right now with doing the Katowice qualifiers, and also Katowice itself. So that's obviously going to be a really big thing. With RoomOnFire, we're working really hard to figure out exactly the right balance for us between covering other leagues, because we want to do that, because we've been doing it since the beginning, and we want to continue to work with those partnerships, but then also creating our own content and exactly how to do that properly, which is a really big challenge, and it's really interesting as well. And we now have somewhat more funds than we had earlier to do it, because of the skins we got into the game. So we actually have like a portion of that money available. Now we just need to figure out how to do it, and because we don't want to throw the money away either that we sort of got from the community. We want to try and keep it cool and make sure we do it right if we can accomplish that. But it's the learning experience for us as well. And it'll be interesting. I think those are the main topics right now that we're sort of under, and then the rest of the year, I mean, I don't know. There's still so much to come. There's still so much to come to be announced from all sorts of different partners. So it should be interesting.
I want to thank you for this interview, this opportunity to talk to you, obviously. And if you have any last words, would you like to share them?
Last words, famous last words. Well, I guess, it's a bit of a cliche. I want to thank everyone who's been supporting us so far with what we've been doing. It's really, really crazy. I realize we've been a little bit more invisible on the channel than we've normally been on our own RoomOnFire channel. And it's something we're sort of still playing around with. How can we make sure we keep that channel somewhat active and make sure that we're still like reaching out to people in that sense while we're doing everything else. So I'm hoping we can do more of that. But yeah, the support absolutely doesn't go unnoticed. I have different days where I wake up and sometimes think, oh, yeah, it's going to be a rough day today. I'm traveling, and then I'm coming home for a day, and then I'm gone again, and then I'm home for a day, and then I'm traveling somewhere else. But I definitely have you know, most days where I wake up and think I'm really, really, really lucky I can do this, and that really can't be done without people helping out and tuning in and stuff like that. So yeah, that is on our minds a lot as well, and that's something that we have to say thank you for every once in a while. So I guess that's it. Maybe a bit of a cliche, but it really does make a big difference.